Thank you all for giving this opportunity to present my paper on anthropological study on food security and its impact of health among especially tribals. We know that SCDGs include scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, women, elderly, and also actually children. But out of it, we have studied especially on scheduled tribes. So tribal ways of getting food is mostly dependent on the physical environment out there. So culture ecology thus is an important part before we look into their food habits or anything. Oh, sorry. Okay, I am Lalitha, anthropology student from AU. Yeah, MA in anthropology, socio-cultural anthropology. Thank you. This is the field work we have done, and I think all you can see the village there where we have done the field work. So if we see, that's the where tribal people, especially of Pengu Porojas and Parangi Porojas, live there. If you see their economic organization, their organization is predominantly shifting cultivation, where they grow paddy, millets, pulses, etc. And the secondary source of subsistence is minor forest produce. So roots, tubers, seeds, seasonal fruits, etc. Obviously, animal husbandry, they do have possess domestic. Okay. They do possess cows, chicken, goats, sheep, etc. But they don't consume it either milk or meat much. They mostly use it for market transactions. It's kind of little barter system exists still. We all know this fact: food security, availability, access, stability, utilization. Okay. Earlier, economists before, I would say maybe in 90s, people have this perception of food security comes from highest food production. But if we go back and look at the Bengal famine of 1943, Odisha famine, and Ireland Great Hunger, Great Famine of 1852, during all the famine years, the food production was the highest actually. So then the economics has observed what is causing this food insecurity and all the starvation and hunger in those famine years. It was not lack of production, it was lack of equitable distribution. Then actually this we got availability, access, all these things, they have updated their version of food security. So from our study, what we found is like availability of food is there, but still we can't say that it is food secured. Let's see what are the reasons for it. Deforestation for growing commercial crops. We all know that forests would go cut down by these governments for growing eucalyptus plantations, and actually in these areas cashew crops. So they lose this forest thing. Initial slide I have told like minor forest produce is the secondary source of subsistence for them. So if we lose forest, obviously they lose qualitative food. And loss and change of traditional foods. Tribal economy is actually a diverse source where they depend on agriculture, food, and also minor forest produce for roots, tubers, seeds, enormous of leaves. There are a lot of diverse food actually. So when we lose forest, obviously we lose some kind of naturally available plants and trees. So they lose these traditional foods. And with that, they lose the diversity in their food consumption. With this update of PDS systems and efficiency of these PDS systems, the food is available all the time at all the places even. But what they are providing majorly is, I would say it is cheap staple food, not of highly nutritious quality food. Sorry. Yeah. So also we observed is changes in cropping pattern. This is how we can see is like this world is almost ever changing to this consumer world rather than human world or social world. It is predominantly changing to consumer world. So people even in the less exposed areas, they are trying to have these crops of commercial or which gives high profits and all. So the pattern is more inclined for getting money, not actually for subsistence. And as we are seeing, there is one of the pic, there is a man who is working, that is a time of 2 p.m. Yeah, 2 p.m. in afternoons. In the scorching sun, they have to work laboriously for some subsistence food. So that's how they have to work to fill their needs. Yeah, actually they are preparing this turmeric for market commercially. Okay, so and the other pic, what we are seeing there is that is the road to the villages. With that kind of roads, how can we ensure that the food supply is ensured all the time, with no proper transportation and all? On this food insecurity, how the economy is affected of them. One thing is, economy is largely subsistence based, but nowadays, as I said earlier, for this consumerism, they have to sell their subsistence food in order to get these outside products. Example, we saw a woman is selling 1 kg of fingertail millets for small mixture packet for her children. See how a highly nutritious food is getting transacted for a small unnutritious food, junk food and processed food. That's how it is getting changed. And from this study, if I don't go much into deeper, if I take 950 rupees out of my pocket, in that 630 rupees I have to put it again for food, to make my food nutritious and diverse. That is how this food supply is became like single, staple based, calorie based. So if we look, I don't go much into it because its time is limited. So let's see orally traditional practices. As I said, edible tubers and staple is like gruel of ragi flour, millets and pulses usually. And vegetables, they used to grow very organically. And at those times, there was less oil and salt consumption, very less, that we have identified, and I'll show you the results later. So it's like there was diverse food sources which are more nutrition. But if you see contemporary changes, in the younger generation, people are coming out to cities for education and for employment, all these purposes. So they're getting exposed to this fried foods, processed foods and all. Because of their preference of change in food habits, that also impacts at their homes, right? So salt, spices, oil consumption also increased, and because of deforestation and all, their traditional fruits and they are also become less. So food became more consistent, but which is less diverse and less nutritious. Thus, if this is how the economy of this tribal society is existing now, so how it is impacting on health? Obviously, we know India is very undernourished country. So undernourishment of children exists. We can see that from low birth weight and low body size of adults. And we know anemia is very severe in children and of women especially. Iron, zinc, micronutrient deficiency, A and B majorly. And there also been some changes in lifestyles, because earlier they have some habit of eating 2 meals a day with more nutrients at 2 meals itself. But nowadays kids are playing games with this mobiles and technology, and also the food dietary changes and the timings has changed. So there are more cases of gastritis even registered in this nearby PSUs. And the more highlighting point in the impacts on health is non-communicable diseases. And unexposed areas, they never know what is TB, what is BP, what is diabetes and all. But now we are seeing the cases are rising in BP in these unexposed areas even, or I would say semi-exposed now. So if I give some data on how it is undernourished, I think you all can see the plate of meal of people there. That's how they consume the food there. I'm sure we can see it's more of only rice, and the other small things are little potato, that's it. So it's majorly calorie based. This is how they daily consume their food. Vegetables here are taken very less, and fruits are very seasonal. So if we take numbers, the 3-year-old child averagely they weigh only 9 kgs. And of course, 65% of adolescents are undernourished from previous studies as well. Coming to the another reason for undernourishment in that, food taboos. They have some specific cultural habits and patterns of consuming food, because food is not just for filling the stomach. It actually has social and cultural significance. So So food taboos also they exist, like they don't consume eggs after delivery. So this also leads to undernourishment. If you see the tuberculosis rate, with increasing screening facilities, they are seeing these TB cases identified very high. And if we see the tables left side, in India, undernourishment is the first reason for TB. Whereas if we see the global report, undernourishment is not first. It is like alcohol, diabetes, all other things. So we should observe like how much undernourishment is still exists even after 75 years of independence. Yeah, non-efficient follow-ups and all. Like efficiency is not there, though the policies are there. And hypertension. This is my record, like where I have taken from the nearest PHC. In 2020, even in COVID times, they have registered around 4 new cases per month. And in 2021, it's like almost 25 cases per month. So why BP is incident in that? Change of dietary habits, obviously, and the consumption of salt increased. That we have taken from in-depth interviews from the people. It's almost like twice the salt consumption increased. And the other one is like increased stress levels. Obviously, people are trying to look for environment that to integrate with the society and all. See, unemployment is not just economic thing. It is also an existential issue. Without a man not having the purpose of work, obviously it creates a lot of stress. It creates a lot of void in them. This has been told by Amartya Sen and also positive psychologists in the world. So from this, if I have to conclude, majorly to elevate hunger or malnutrition, most of the policies and schemes are working on providing food. But they are not focused on building roads, building communication networks to have this continuous food supply. That is what we should focus. And this geographical exclusion obviously creates hurdles. And commercialization, which is creating soil erosion and reducing soil fertility. As I said, increasing dependency on paddy is also reducing this diversity. With all these reasons, sustainable agriculture practices are a long way to go. So if I have to suggest some things which can work is, to ensure food security, we should focus on eating local, not the food getting from outside. If we take tribal areas, they have to get food from outside, almost like from plain areas. Instead of doing that, we can focus on eating local there. Means they have to consume from their local environments, which can promote the sustainability, what the world is striving for. And also it creates an assurance of food security because it is from local. And also we have to include programs and policies for food and nutritional education. This can be done starting from schools. There are programs like school-based food and nutritional education, SFNs, being done in Scotland and other countries. We can also include them in curriculum, like a play thing in their kindergarten's education, having like a gardening tasks. It's like extracurricular activities. With that, we can build up food and nutrition education, because this transition phase is creating loss of awareness of values of their own traditional foods, and they are going for this outside junk and processed foods more. We can find the Chinese noodle point easier than a proper communication network there. That's the hard reality there. So we have to go for educational schemes to increase schemes especially, not I'm talking about assistance schemes and all, because to increase agricultural yields, a blind policy doesn't work, because the policy has to be culturally appropriate to make them understand for a proper implementation. For that, we have to go for education schemes. And obviously, as an anthropologist, I would say collecting emic data for any policy planning and formulating policy, first we should go for collecting their perspective of what is development, even what is food, how they want to see it. All these things we should collect before formulating the plan and post evaluation for any interventions. That's it I can say. Thank you.